All right, everyone, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the lunch break. It's now 2 o'clock, and we have our panel for today. We have a very exciting panel because they are SEO rockstars, as you can see. Woo. Yes, rockstars, correct. Autographs afterward, not a problem. We use a lot of acronyms in SEO. SEO being an acronym on its own. But who could tell me what GSC stands for? Anyone? Go ahead. Yes. Google Search Console. Very, very good. How about PBN? Yes. Private Blog Network. Absolutely right. Who knows what AMA is? AMA. Shit, you're good. Yes, ask me anything. How do you know that? That's not an SEO term. It's supposed to be a trick question. But yes, ask me anything. And this is our AMA panel, our Ask Me Anything panel. That means you could ask about Blackhat, you could ask about Whitehat, you could ask about whatever color hat you want to ask about. Joining us on this panel, we have Mr. Andor Palau, we have Christoph C. Cemper, we have Fili, and we have Nichola Stott. You've seen two of them earlier today, and the other two are brand new faces. So I will let everyone introduce themselves very quickly so you can get a little bit of background on each one's specialization, and that will help you ask them anything. Fili, why don't you start, and we'll just go down the line. Or okay, we could have Andor start, or whomever.
Hi, I'm Andor. I'm the head of SEO in a Berlin-based agency. We're doing a lot of PPC and SEO stuff, nearly 90 people now, and I'm happy to be here.
I'm Nichola. I'm Managing Director of Erudite. I've been working in digital for 20 years, and about 15 years of those in search, previously at a search engine called Yahoo, which nobody knows anymore.
Hi, I'm Christoph, founder of LinkResearchTools, creator of Detox. Been doing links and SEO since 2003. I think that's about it. I'll tell you more about me and my stuff at 3:30, the session after this.
Hello everyone, my name is Fili, and I'm an ex-Google engineer, and I now work together with another ex-Googler at searchbrothers.com.
Okay, so now you know everyone's background. You can kind of direct your questions to whomever you want. As it's Ask Me Anything at any point, you raise your hand, and I will come over to you with the microphone. Please wait for the microphone before you ask the question so that everyone can hear you. Would you like to start with the audience question, or shall I? Okay, I'll start. I have a long list of questions. It's not a problem. I have an interesting one that Nichola sent in, and she said, if you were down to your last 5,000 pounds in marketing spend, what would you spend it on? And that caught my eye as something we should start with, because I think, you're oftentimes budget restrained, or you have your budgets committed to various things anyway every month, and you might want to take a little bit more and chuck it at something new. How would we do that?
Do you want to start with me then?
Yes.
Okay. So, when it comes to all the things that we do within SEO, all of the different ranking factors, all of the different investment options we've got, pretty much all of them come with risk, right? So if we're thinking about, I want to do a link campaign, I've got $5,000, I could do an amazing survey, I could get some really credible data and create an awesome story designed to do white hat kind of PR outreach stuff. But it still carries risk. Because, who's to say that that kind of tactic might not be seen as a spam tactic and result in a penalty in 6 months' time? So to my mind, if you're going to spend your last £5,000 on something, you want to spend it on something that is always going to give you a good ROI. So I would suggest that should be something that you can't fuck up and something that doesn't have any risk, which would be performance optimization. You cannot get it wrong if you make your site faster. There's no way of that coming back to bite you on the ass. So that would be my recommendation in terms of a good, solid, last few grand spend.
How would you judge its success? How would you measure the success? How much faster do you need to be 5,000 pounds faster?
So that's a fucking good question, right?
Thank you. I was going to take an over-under on how many F words we got.
Sorry.
On this panel. No, I love it. It's fantastic.
So data without context is totally meaningless, right? So there are two different ways of looking at it. You can look at it in terms of what do Google want, and they're looking for a sub 10-second TTFI, or time to fully interactive. But after 3 seconds on a mobile phone, which most people are, some of you all sat there on your phones right now, after 3 seconds, 53% of people will bugger off if your page hasn't loaded. So it's got to be between those margins, surely. Incidentally, we're about to release a load of data on the top 5,000 websites in the UK, which is statistically pretty robust, right? So it's everything. It's all you need to know, which then tells you all of the speed metrics for all of those sites across the 5,000, and it's categorized as well. So if you keep an eye out for that data, I've got some more data here if anybody wants it. Because rank is a competition, it's who are you up against on those other positions. You've got to be faster than them. That's what you need to do. It's that simple.
Christoph, you're looking at me like you would spend £5,000 differently, and I think it's going to have something to do with links.
No.
Wow.
It's not about links. I mean, maybe it is about links. I wasn't sure. Was the question the last 5,000?
No, you have 5,000
Just
to spend.
5,000.
You're doing your normal stuff.
Uh-huh.
You said, okay, I'm not going to take £5,000 home this week. I'm going to put it into something else.
Okay. What I find a lot of companies, brands, affiliates not doing is just doing that initial competitive research. It's trying to figure out, why should I be on the first page? Why should I be ranking well? What are the others doing? They're probably doing a lot of what I'm going to do or already do. What could I do that they don't? It could be an off, could be a special enabling.
Let me give you this microphone. I think yours is maybe not working.
It could be, that's different. It could be links. Of course, when you do a link analysis of your competitors, it could be a special type of, let's say, part of the internet that you didn't think about getting links from. It could be links from Quora or special forums, or maybe that one community that you think is worth investing time into. But this initial assessment on competitive research is not just once in your lifetime, especially if you've been around for years. Reassessing your competitive landscape is something that I would do with that money. It doesn't necessarily mean buying software or services. It could be paying your rent for the next 3 months, just finding new angles. And then maybe do that one thing that everyone else forgot or is not doing anymore. Competitive research goes back to the web archive. Yeah.
So you're suggesting that you need to do this yourself. You're not suggesting you hire someone to do the research. You're suggesting take the time and make it happen yourself?
It really depends on your situation, but I've found that, also for my business, when we talk about link building, link audits, how to do SEO, how to build software for SEO, I'm the founder, I'm the brain of the company, so I do a lot of that research myself. I figure stuff out, and I'm the one with 15 years of history there. Chances are, if you run your own business, you are in a similar position. Doesn't mean you cannot hire someone else for that. That is a specialist in that. But very often the founder or the owner of that company or that affiliate business is the most familiar one with that specific. If you're doing casino just in Belgium, just in French, then you may know a thing or two about all the legislation things in that specific market. Might be hard to find that gap in the market for someone else. Yeah.
Well, Fili, tell us a little bit about how often you audit or you suggest people audit their websites and how you go about doing it.
Sorry?
We're talking about auditing your site and auditing what the competitors are doing as well. But I mean, let's look at auditing your own site. How often do you recommend that someone should audit their own site, take some time out as the owner or founder of the business, and just look at everything that they're doing? And should they do it in-house? Should they outsource it? How do you go about doing your own site's audit?
Yeah. So thanks for the question. So SEO auditing is most definitely something I would do, spend money on. Also, coming back to the previous question as well, I see actually what Nichola answered on performance optimization. Absolutely, you do need to look at how your website performs. I see that as part of an audit, for the simple reason that auditing is important. You do need to do it on a regular basis. You do, just as you go to the doctor or the dentist once in a while, you do need to double check how your website performs. And if you're not sending conflicting signals. Now this last part is actually the part where I would say that's where you want to be focused on. Not just what can I optimize further, but what potentially conflicting signals am I sending to Google? I see very often that websites do send conflicting signals to Google. For example, using canonical to another URL as well as a no index. Yeah, or I came across another example the other day where the mobile, the M dot, was no indexed using a xrobots tag in the HTTP header, while canonized to the root, but it did show up in the search results, even though it should be no index. Yeah, you're sending conflicting signals at that point, because you say, hey, I have an alternate version that's the mobile and the M dot version, but I'm also saying no index the M dot version. So these are things that can go very wrong very quickly. And if you don't audit your website, you don't know. Now, coming to the second part of your question, who should do it? You should most definitely check yourself most frequently, but once in a while you want to get a third-party input. And that can be an SEO expert, that can be a friendly other company, like a buddy of yours that may have another, like one of their employees that's also good at SEO, someone who doesn't know your website, who isn't looking at your website the same way you are. Like you may say like, okay, this and this and this, yeah, I know that it's happening because I think that's that. And now you have come to an assumption, you don't know it 100%, but now that assumption lives in your mind and may prevent you from actually fixing it the next couple of years, because you made an assumption and no one says that that assumption is right. So I would say getting a third party in to look at your website for a moment will help you potentially break through some of those assumptions that may be holding you back.
And that's a pretty good answer. What audience questions do we have so far? Do we have any? No, then Andor, I'd like to ask you a slightly different way to ask the question. What would you not spend an extra 5,000 on, but what would you budget in for your next 5,000 that you think you're going to need to do pretty quickly? I know you just gave your talk on a lot of things mobile, and I'm guessing that you're going to have some tips as to what you need to be planning in the next 1 or 2 quarters where you're going to need to invest a little bit of money in your website.
Yeah, I mean, I think we already have seen that the answers to this question highly depending on the situation you're in, right? So, for example, if I'm in-house SEO, I would totally agree with that what Nichola has said, because I think that speed is something you really need to care about, right? But also that what actually Fili said, that it is always good once in a while to have somebody who is coming from the outside and being bloody honest with you. So that is the most important thing there. It's actually the potential to reprioritize your own actually agenda maybe, because you know all your websites, you know everything, but in the often you're not always honest with yourself, right? So, and right after my session, there was someone who asked me, "Wait, look, I'm faster than every other competitor. Why do I not rank on number 1, for example?" And the truth is, you don't focus on just one actually KPI. Be earnest with yourself and look at something else. So yeah, as said, it is. And come back to your question when it comes to mobile. I mean, you really need to care about the fact that is your page mobile ready or not. So, and if not, if you have signed for that, for example, Google Search Console or whatever, then definitely that is a thing you can or should spend money on to fix that.
Christoph, it looked like you might have had something you wanted to add.
Well, as Andor said, you want to figure out what is most important or what you want to do the next step in. And I fully agree with that. That's the whole point of the competitive research. But if you have not done that, if you just want to spend some money, and 5K would get you a small, real private blog network of 10, 12 sites. Something that is not a link in a PBN, but is actually an owned blog network, especially in gaming.
Are PBNs still important, or that's pretty much a dead strategy, or do you still think there's a lot of life left?
The thing is that PBN stands for private block network, but a lot of people buy links from so-called PBNs, which I end up public block networks. The moment you have a broker, the moment you are buying some links off some websites, it's not a private block network anymore. Those people that bring in the money, those people that rank like crazy for loan-related terms, even in Germany, not even talking gaming or porn, that easier, are using real private block networks. Means they're building them themselves or have agencies that build it for them, but then they own those networks. The whole propaganda from Google against private block networks, of course, always has examples from people getting penalized, like they always had examples of people getting penalized to scare the hell out of us. Yeah. But when we talk about gaming, when we talk about forex, porn, loans, here's a question.
Yeah, I'll come down with the microphone.
Hello. My question is, I set up some private networks, and then after a month I forget them, and they just lay around somewhere. How important is it that the private block network gets fresh content? Or how much new content should the private block network get per month or per year?
Okay. That's a perfect question for one of the metrics we have in LinkResearchTools. It's called link velocity trends. It applies not even to new content, it applies to new links. Mostly, I see so-called private block networks, even when they're built in private, I see someone snatching up expired domains that had hundreds of thousands or 100,000 of links in the past, saw a drop in their link graph because the domain dropped, then they slap new content on it, and then they hope for the best. And that might work for a month, for two. But the key here is not that it needs new content, it also needs new links. A real website earns new links. So this is where a real private block network is more a private network of own sites that look like real websites and behave like them. And in Google's eyes, and this is a metric that we've had since 2012, I think, the link velocity trend, the speed at which links are built or churned, matters. Looking at that, I can spot by looking at just one number if it's part of such a network or if it's at that domain. And coming back to your questions regarding new content, look at your competitors. If 10 new links per month is somewhat normal in their backlink profile for a majority, then you better build a private block network and make sure they earn that amount of links, which is not easy to do. But that is the difference between this static and, say, rotten PBNs and those that are alive. So many companies have huge link building teams to build links to their block networks, to their site network. Yeah, I hope that answered that question.
Is everyone on the panel a fan of PBNs? Is anyone in disagreement, Christoph?
No. I'm sure nobody wants that. Because it's a bad thing to do. Here's the disclaimer. Google doesn't want you to build links. Google doesn't want you to manipulate links. Google doesn't even want to do anything that could get you links, not even ask your clients to link to you in exchange for some extra credits. So this hosting platform called Wix was just recently outed for that. So in a sense, and this is what Google spokesman Gary Illis said to me in Brighton. Brighton 2017, September, I walk up to him on stage with the orange jacket. I give him one of the shirts with his comic face on it. He says to me, Christoph, you do a fantastic job of reminding people about links. And we, Google, don't appreciate that. I think that nails it. The fact that Google is still so much depending on links is the reason why they are constantly pushing and dramatizing. And the PBM penalty around Christmas was no different. Asking my community, so what about the PBM penalty? And people said, well, do you mean the EDUs? Or what do you mean? I didn't pay attention. Those people successful, making all the money with real efforts, are still making that. But they successfully shy away a lot of companies. And here's the thing. If you're responsible for deciding on something that Google actively discourages, your risk, your own job. That's the whole magic behind that. And so a lot of agencies or a lot of, let's say, head of online marketing and big corporations cannot even, officially suggest that, But if you have some partners that would be affiliates, that would be doing that, things could happen.
All the better. Fili.
Yeah, just to add, it is relatively easy for Google to detect these networks, these private networks. You have to keep in mind, Google has all the data. Yeah, so it's just a matter of time before they get around to it. And that last part is the part that is primarily the reason why, if you have a private network and it is still running, why it's still working. It's too small, they didn't get around to it yet. Yeah, so that's the thing there.
Go ahead, Christoph.
And this is the reason why those private, so-called private blog networks where you can buy into for $20 are the biggest risk. Those are networks of hundreds of sites with hundreds of clients. And they were called ALN, Article Link Network, in 2012. Today, they have other brands. My saying is, if a network has a name or a brand.
I would say, though, that the focus of link building should absolutely not be PageRank. Yeah? PageRank isn't important when it comes to link building. It's actually getting direct converting traffic. So to be honest, instead of building a private network or putting my money in that, I would actually, if you, like Google doesn't say, and here I'm going to say something that might surprise some of you. Google is not against link building. Google is against link building for the purpose of manipulating the algorithm. You hear the difference. One is a mouthful, the other one is not. Yeah? Google is not against link building. They're against the manipulation of the PageRank algorithm. Yeah? So as a result, you can do link building. Just don't do it for PageRank. Do link building for converting traffic to your website. Not just traffic. Traffic can be easy depending on, but in most cases, if you're running a normal website and you're not porn related, you can probably get a lot of traffic from porn related stuff by getting some links from a couple of porn sites. Yeah? But that's probably not the traffic you want to have if you're a normal business or if you're a normal affiliate. So at that point, you want to say, hey, I want converting traffic. Yeah? Now, that money that you spend on building the private blog network, you can also say, what if I invest this into partnerships? So, for example, you go to local sports clubs or something along those lines, and you buy a link on their menu. Yeah, and yes, make it no follow because you don't want to be penalized. You don't care about the PageRank. It's about getting the traffic. So if you're in sports betting and you go to a whole bunch of different smaller sports clubs and they start including links to your website, yeah, no followed. Again, it's not about the PageRank. Now you suddenly are where your audience potentially is. Not only that, you can actually get traffic from that actually converts on your website. Also, the next time that a person from these sports clubs sees your brand in the search result when they do a generic query, so a non-branded query, and they see your brand pop up, they may actually click on it because of the affiliation you have with that sport club that they already like. So, this is normal branding. You do not need to focus on PageRank. You do need to, though, focus on link building. But link building is part of the web. The word web refers to links. That was the invention. That is why it's called the World Wide Web. Without the links, there is no web. There is no World Wide Web. That was the invention. So link building important. Just spend that money better.
Some audience questions, because we covered quite a lot. I'm sure there must be some confusions or questions. Let's get into then what Google's been up to. You kind of mentioned some penalties for PBNs over Christmas. What's been going on in the world of Google for each of you that you find concerning or something that you've had to rush to think about and work around in the last 6 months? Why don't we start with Andor? You guys haven't had a chance on this side.
So I mean, at the moment we are really thinking about all these JavaScript things, I think. So this is actually one topic that drives us at the moment. So we see this movement that Google needs or wants to actually better understand what you're doing on a page, right? And what you may do through scripts and other things. So these whole frameworks and everything which is actually going on there is a highly interesting thing at the moment. And I think we, from an SEO perspective as well as Google, are still in a I don't know, time where we need to orientate us. So what is the next big thing there, and how they actually need or want to understand the websites. To be honest, I've less dealt in the last couple of months when it comes down to penalties. I mean, there have been unknown updates and things like that. Yeah, that's true. But penalties has been actually decreased when it comes down to our agency business in 2017. It's more about proper on page. It's more about shaping actually the targeting of your site. It's building a future-orientated website which has actually the user experience in mind. And that is something I think you should orientate in the next 6 months.
Nichola, what do you want to add to that?
So one thing that I've noticed recently, which is quite interesting, is a very strong correlation, so not causative relationship, but a correlative relationship between the addition of structured data to a page and ranking increases. So we're still kind of working that one out. What I suspect is happening is that the structured data gives additional meaning or the ability for Google to understand what's going on the page and what the content is saying, thus the ability to determine relevancy more simpler, faster. So relevancy can be determined and then rank improves, assuming that the query relevancy is at an optimal level. We'll keep on going on that and see if we can work out if it's a causal or correlative, but ultimately add structured data to your page and your rankings will increase.
Oh, yeah. So who of you has edited his meta descriptions in the last 2 months? Ah, yeah, okay. Well, you other guys go back and realize that Google now displays more text in the meta description. If you don't have a meta description, then you kind of get something copied out of your page, but you now got more content to display. Your display ad, if you want, in the Google search results got bigger. And that means you can stuff in more emojis, you can even have ASCII graphics in there, I don't know. You can play with that and update those and revisit, because your competitors are doing the same. It's as easy as telling your editors to just revisit those meta descriptions, and some of them might be super outdated anyways, like mine. Yeah, I'm doing that just now. But Google changed that recently, and that's an easy takeaway for every webmaster anyways. The penalties that I just spoke about, the PBM penalty or EDU penalty or whatever it was talked about around Christmas, we looked at 43 manual action penalties. 43 penalties analyzed had nothing to do with the PBN specifically in January, 43 in January that we analyzed, had nothing to do with a PBN especially, but actually with the old and classic money keyword overdone. You know, when you have money keywords, like play poker online, or just a brand keyword linking, people are greedy, SEOs are greedy, and this has not changed, or it actually changed back again. So we found most of them being overdone on the money keyword. And the second thing where the greediness of the SEOs comes in, if you have a PBN and you have an own domain, then please, 1 link, 2 link, 3 link. 3 links sticks out already. If you have that PBN and if you have your own domains linking to you 7 times or more, that sticks out too. Those are the footprints. But I think most important is that we saw that money keywords overdone on juicy, strong, high quality pages with good metrics, which is actually something that we wish for. And I understand if you pay all that money for that big link on that big newspaper or wherever, you want the best possible keyword. But that could get you into trouble if this sticks out of your own backlink profile and sticks out of what is normal for that industry. That's what we saw. That was the so-called PBM penalty.
I'm going to go with something else that most of you may or may not be aware of. I think may not. And that's for me a little bit of a concern actually, and that might be also a surprise to some as an ex-Googler saying this. But Google changed recently the search results in a way that if you go now to a different country level TLD, you do not get the search result from that country level TLD. You still get it from where you are. So it's one index for you, no matter which of the Google domains you use. So the .za for South Africa will be the same results as the .de. Yeah?
So where I am is going to determine my results, not which search engine version I use, not which TLD I use.
They changed that, yes. They changed in the past. When you went to one, you got like the index focused on the, for example, South Africa versus the German one. But now, if you're in Germany, you will get the same results on .za as you get on .de. Now there may be still slight variation based on language, like if you German and English or Afrikaans is obviously not the same. So there may be still a minor difference, but it's the same index. You're getting now your version, your local version on the other TLD. And now that concerns me a little bit, and I know why they did it. They said obviously, we want to create the best user experience, and I believe for a lot of users it will be a good experience, but for us, it's not. Now they also said like, okay, we want bots to prevent scraping us all the time. They didn't stop that with this. They just postponed the ways around this with VPN and other solutions. Yeah, so again, that is not the primary thing. Why they did it, in my what I think happened, is legal. And the thing comes down to, here's this interesting case in the US, and we have similar cases here in Europe, in Spain, for example, where content gets removed, like the right to be forgotten, content gets removed from one country TLD, but is still accessible on the other ones. Now, they basically still made this the case, but you need to now be in that other country to see it. So, Google got a lot of complaints. Like in Canada was this court case where the court said Google has to remove this search result, a particular search result that was someone complained about. Said you have to remove it from everywhere, from every single TLD around the world. Now Google normally doesn't do that, so there was a second lawsuit in the US trying to fight that. The Canadian guys never showed up for that one, so they kind of won that one. But the precedent was like, hey, is the Canadian courts dictating what's going to happen around the rest of the world on this front? The way that Google had dealt with this, as well as within Europe with the right to be forgotten, is to switch it around and basically say, you know what, if you're in Germany, you're always going to get the German index, no matter which TLD on Google you're on. And I think that really, like you may have heard the word filter bubbles and stuff like that. Now, to a certain extent, this is a new filter bubble. To a certain extent, on a larger scale. Like in the past, it was a filter bubble as you're logged in. You have previously searched for XYZ, so you may be interested also in STR or whatever, you know. But now, you're filter bubbled on country. So now, people in Germany may get completely different results than people in the Netherlands or in the UK, etc., for the same type of queries, because they've now more isolated. So that's something I'm a little bit concerned about.
Am I correct in saying that I believe Google's removed the link to google.com from all its country-specific TLDs? Is that correct? You no longer have a go to google.com on the bottom of your search bar?
You can switch to google.com, yeah, but that now only changes the language of the interface, not the actual index anymore.
I'm not even sure there's a go to google.com when you're on google.se or whatever you might be on I was somewhere the other day and I was looking for the go to google.com because I
They
kept getting
hide
my
it
results
pretty well. They're starting
in
to hide it
Swedish,
more and more.
and I couldn't find it. But let's explain the filter bubble a little bit more. I'd like to talk a little bit about that because, I mean, it's not just affected by your country. There's other things that are going to affect your results. So can we just discuss filter bubble generally at a higher level? Sure, Christoph. Or
A
whoever.
filter bubble. Google kind of confirmed, or they confirmed they have a filter bubble problem, and it has to do with someone trying to figure out, if you should buy that type of product or if you should not buy that type of product. As an example, what is the best, mobile phone? What's the best phone for, Germany or whatever? They already give that keyword best to, a text retrieval system, a very fancy text retrieval system. But that means Google brings up all these posts about the best and described as best products. What they might want to know is, how do I compare products among each other? So the query, Google says that they want to get better at understanding the intention of what the guy is really trying to do. And what he is really trying to do is, he want to understand, how should I decide for a mobile phone for my needs? And that guy might not even know his needs yet. But going back to this, question that the user maybe doesn't even have, but instead giving him the best list of the most recent phones or the phones best for photography was also described as an example for that filter bubble. Essentially, it goes back to Google behaving as a text retrieval system returning documents for that query. But if the query isn't good enough, then the results cannot be. Yeah? It's let's say an advanced example of garbage in, garbage out. Yeah, as in software. Yeah? But
So I do want to add one quick thing to that as well, and that is that although filter bubbles do exist, it's not a new phenomenon. A lot of people associate filter bubbles at the moment just with Google or Facebook or something like that. But to be honest, they've been around for centuries in a way. You can, if you really take a high level for a moment, you could say that religions to a certain extent were a filter bubble 500, 1,000 years ago. You could say it like right now in the US, the people who watch CNN and the people who watch Fox News are two different target audiences, and they both live in their own world and don't often cross to the other side, if you know what I mean. In a way, these filter bubbles exist in multiple forms of media, and yes, it does exist in Google as well. Search engines as well as social media platforms like Facebook, etc., Twitter, etc., but especially Facebook because of their recommendation part, they basically put certain content forward because they think, based on your past searches and behavior, that you may be more interested in it. So if you're always interested in green poker chips, you're going to see more green poker chips. You're not going to see less. You're not going to see more options necessarily. You're going to see more of that, and you're going to read more reviews why they're the best, or etc., or why you should have them and stuff like that, instead of necessarily a balanced overview.
So I'm hearing a lot of examples that are very transactional related. So where does the opportunity exist for the people in this room, or where is it exploitable to go after these filter bubbles and gain benefit from the way Google's treating various groups of people?
Well, I think most definitely you can create a whole bunch of websites that all support each other. Like, to be honest, just look at the American politics, especially on the Republican side. If you look at how the websites are all supportive of each other, in a way that's, you could do this and control it yourself as your own private network, doing a similar type of thing, and spread the news big that way, and control this, or push down a message. This is absolutely possible. Anyone can do it in principle.
One thing I'd say about those types of queries, as intent queries, is they all tend to trigger an answer box, a much richer answer. So essentially, to get those answer box results, it's pretty straightforward. You need to just answer the question. So if you've got landing pages that explicitly answer common questions, it might be something like, so newspapers do this brilliantly. What time is the blah? I think it's the Telegraph. Was it Malcolm? The Telegraph did loads and loads of landing pages for all sorts of sports-related queries. What time is X football match on, or anything like that? In different queries that you could possibly imagine for whatever event you might be optimizing for. Create separate landing pages, answer the actual question explicitly on the page, and use structured data markup. Providing you're already authoritative for that phrase, then you'll get the answer box result. And then if you're on mobile, you'll get all the traffic.
You know, sadly, the recent Super Bowl started an hour and a half too early for me because I asked my Amazon Alexa what time kickoff was, and apparently the authority site that she chose was entirely wrong.
She's a bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, Alexa doesn't always get it right, nor does Google Home. But I would like to add to the feature snippet part, and this is something you guys can take away as like, often with the most important queries, you will already find an answer box. So how do you solve this? Well, look at rephrasing the question. So one thing that I've seen a lot as well is like, for example, what is the best XYZ? Or why is this good? Yeah, and this being XYZ, whatever. You can also say, why is XYZ bad? And now answer that question. Yeah, so you can get the other questions that are basically the same intent or the same mindset behind it. Just rephrase the question. Now, if you look at the search results, when there is an answer box, there's also very often, not always, but frequently enough, a summary of like other people also asked, and you get a couple of more questions there. So try to see what are those questions, and can you rephrase those questions as well? And you can then see like, hey, now I can maybe it will be harder to still pop into replacing the other one as an authority, especially if you're not as authoritative. But if you are answering the other question that no one else is, a rephrase of that primary question, you can still get exposure.
So that leads me to another question. Do I have any audience questions before I just continue? Yes.
So if you're ranking a website and you're looking at, say, term frequency in IDF, how important do you think that is when it comes to like inverse document frequency? How important do you think it is when it, like for ranking the website?
It's about TF-IDF. Is it important? Personally, I don't believe TF-IDF is a serious ranking factor. So TF-IDF was the original ranking formula used by Ink2Me, which is a search engine Yahoo bought back in the day. The test server, we used to lovingly refer to it as. That was their ranking algorithm. I really don't see any proof, data, serious evidence that TF-IDF is strong enough to even be worth your time against others. That's my view. Fili might disagree. He doesn't. That's what he's told.
Any others? No.
Just to add, well, he goes to the other one. I would say it can't hurt to run it if you have the opportunity to run it, like using tools, etc. And to look if anything pops out that may be interesting, but I wouldn't spend too much effort on it either.
Does everyone know what TF-IDF is, actually? Term frequency, inverse document frequency. So it's essentially how many times does that word appear on that page. So the formula being if I've got 10 instances of a phrase on one page, that's better than one instance of a phrase on a page, crudely put.
Yeah, sure. Hi, guys. I have the question about Google penalties. We have an issue with one of our sites at the moment where we've dropped down in the rankings for some very, I guess the best way of putting it is specific search queries. So it's not a manual penalty. It doesn't affect the entire site. It's just for very specific terms. And we were wondering if the panel had seen any issues like that and what they think that the most likely cause would be.
I think we've all seen that a few times. Who wants to take that?
Just to confirm, you say you did not get a warning in Google Search Console, so you say it's not a manual one.
That's right.
Yeah. So so the first thing I would ask back before is, are you sure it's actually a algorithmic update? It's not a penalty. That I can tell straight away, because penalties are manual actions. There is no such thing as an algorithmic penalty. Yeah. So for anyone, there's no algorithmic penalty. That doesn't exist. Penalty is manual. There's an algorithm that may impact your website differently from before versus after, but that's an update. That's not a penalty. They didn't just change how your website, like think of that like this. An algorithm is a big formula, yeah? If you change a number in that, would you say that's a penalty? Because the input-output changes. So do you call that a penalty? No, that's an update. So that's just as using your TomTom or something like that, where you basically take the wrong turn, your tires don't get slashed. Your car doesn't stop driving. You just take longer to get there. Yeah? That's an update that you get. It's a recalculation. It's not a penalty straight away. So if it's not a manual one, it's not a penalty. It's an algorithmic update, which then always triggers me to ask, did you make any changes to your website? Are you sending any conflicting signals? Because for all you know, that could be the problem. It could be that Google is starting to look at something more, or starting to appreciate something more, like for example speed, where you may actually now suddenly suffer. If Google can't crawl your website because you're returning a lot of 503 errors to Googlebot, if you do this for a couple of weeks, Google will tank your website. And this has nothing to do with anything else. So for that reason, I'm just asking, this would be some of the things I would be asking straight away back before assuming it's algorithmic update. Now it could be, I'm not saying it isn't, but there's a lot of other things that now come in play if it's not a manual penalty. And I think, Andor, do you want to also take?
Especially when it comes down to updates, you have to think about thresholds, right? So sometimes it is the case that something is okay till a specific moment, and then it turns back. And as Fili actually said, the first thing you always should do is make an investigation internally if you have done anything else or if you have changed anything. Like I mentioned in my session, for example, somebody switched the breakpoints from the responsive design, and we saw actually the mobile version, although we fetched the desktop one. So make sure first that everything on your site is fine, and then you can make can have a think about updates.
Sorry, just very good. What he said reminded me of another thing. Mobile signals also start to become more and more important. And if Google may have started crawling your website with the mobile user agent. So it could also be that your mobile signals, and excuse my French in this case, suck. And in that case, that could be already the reason. Now, I'm not saying, again, it's not a manual update that is responsible. There's many ways that could be the case. But the answer to all of this is pretty much the same. And that is, you need to investigate. You need to do an audit, in-house or external. You need to dive deep. Because if it's algorithmic, then it's basically algorithms. It's a black box. We're okay with that. That's unfortunately how life is. Google black box, you can't see what's in there. I've seen some of it, or at least a lot of it, but they should keep changing it. The key thing is input, output. We control what goes in. We don't control how it comes out, but we do control what goes in. So an audit and double checking what you send in, that's what you have control over. So that's what you need to check. And if it's anything algorithmic, it comes down to controlling the input, changing that, testing that, checking that. It's all algorithmic. That's where you need to check it.
Just
and additional, sorry for that.
Go ahead.
Additional to that, because Fili mentioned the user agent switch, right? So have a look at that. And then, for example, keep in mind that Google has just confirmed, for example, that from July 18, page speed is a ranking factor for mobile queries, right? So keep in mind that also the environment actually is changing, and you need to be actually have a look at if you still match that.
Did you build some links to your site with these keywords? Okay.
That could also be a factor, by the way. External.
Could be an external factor. Any other audience questions? Good. Okay, good.
If you were to start building a new site now, what would your target be of links pointing to the home page versus inner pages? So what ratio would you aim at? Or what kind of range would you try and keep it in? In this industry, not in any other industry.
Okay, this industry being slots or poker or...
Call it casino and slots. All of it.
The truth is that, in casino and slots, you don't have a lot of long tail, which means, writing and linking is not as easy as in other industries. This also brings up the question, how do you fill your website besides with the transactional pages, with the money pages that should convert, with any kind of content that you want to use as a link target for outreach. And when you look at your competitors, when you do a competitive research, you will see some that have a strategy that is very content rich, that even talks about non-gambling terms. Because honestly, if you have a gaming website, a casino or slots website, that somehow brings in links from great places for good reasons, that do not have any kind of money keyword, casino slot keywords, you will still earn the trust. You could still build the trust of that domain. Yeah? And that would justify to have a very high deep link ratio. To answer the question in a simple sentence, there is no one size fits all for that, because it also depends not only on the competitors but also on your strategies. And if you have this ratio here versus the other one, it also won't make your website rank better or not. Yeah. But from my recommendation today is I would go very, very content rich and try to build some content that attracts people naturally, because we spoke about, I spoke about, building these links, even to the links that you build. Who wants to keep up with all that? So it really starts with your website. I'm a link guy, but I really, the answer before should have been spend 5,000 on the best writer you can get. If the content you have is shit, no links in the world will help you. People will bounce off, and those user signals will tell Google that website is bad. Yeah, so that means, I would rather go amazing content, maybe just $5,000 for one piece, and the outreach. That, as a brief answer.
Well, from your experience, 5,000 to write a really well-written piece, which, over the years in the magazine business, we've done that. Or would you spend 5,000 on a really great interview where you paid someone to go and do a unique interview with you? What would get more, what do you think gets more link, gets more traffic, gets more volume?
Depends on whom you do the interview with, right?
You have 5,000 for each. I mean, it doesn't really matter. In my experience, the interview is what's been, what drives things forward. You get the links, you get their Facebook and their Twitter accounts pointing at you. Yeah. And I had my site basically crashed for 2 days from an interview with Dan Bilzerian. And this is before he was involved in anything gaming. So we did a thing on Blitz, did an interview, put it in Bluff magazine, and then the Bluff website didn't work for 2 days. So,
yeah.
Okay, I wanted to ask the last question around voice search, if it's a game changer, and then talk a little bit about your ideas on screenless search, where my Alexa messes up my life. Nichola, why don't you start?
I love voice search. I'm obsessed with voice search because it means I can do more things at the same time. In terms of, is it a game changer? It's not a game changer in terms of what we need to do, because we still need to do these things, which is write really good content, mark it up semantically, and make sure you're technically fast and versed. So in terms of the work we have to do, it doesn't change at all. As long as these voice assistants can understand and pass and translate this information, then that's cool. What we do need to be aware of, though, is voice is, when did you learn to type? How old were you when you learned to type? You were what, like maybe 5? Or we had typing lessons. I'm that old. That's what we did at school, actual typing lessons. But you learned to speak intuitively and natively from like 9 months to 18 months old. That's what we do. So it will be a game changer in terms of the metrics and the way that our data looks going forward. Because kids, you know, if you go into a school and watch a bunch of teenagers, they will use voice natively and intuitively because that technology is almost a retrofit, if you like. We should have had voice search before we had typing and text because it's just much more natural and innate to us. So I think the data is going to look quite exciting in a couple of years' time in terms of the work we need to do. Not that exciting now.
My 2-year-old daughter has been trying to talk to Alexa because you can't say Alexa, so therefore Alexa does not recognize her at all. But has been trying to talk to Lexa since she was 2. So I see it. It's the native way that the kids speak. And yeah, I'd like to hear everyone's opinions on that, and also on screenless search.
Yeah, just don't forget that Amazon actually a long time ago already bought a search engine called A9, and that's actually something that they also use in the backend. You know, now on top of that, the one thing that what I see as a potential risk or something that will still explode a little bit more down the line is with voice search is. For example, with Alexa and stuff like that, machines that are listening 24/7 to everything that goes around in your home. And I can see, especially in Europe, and maybe not in the US as much, but I can see that in Europe becoming also a bit of an issue more and more in the next few years. That having said, it is exciting times, like Nichola said, some interesting data coming our way. You do need to mark up your data in order to be considered. You need to be fast, you need to have all the right settings, so to say. Don't send conflicting signals, stuff like that. But absolutely interesting development going forward.
I mean, transactionally, from what you say, it only follows logically that the whole world changes for affiliates, because I'll say something like, Alexa, place a bet for me at the best odds for the 4 o'clock at wherever, Ascot. Where does the affiliate fit in that world?
So it comes back to the answer, the featured snippet. What the featured snippet that you will see on your own screen, that's the answer that's being read by your assistant. So if you are there, then you'll be the answer for the assistant. So again, mark it up, make it fast, all the rest of it, and answer the bloody question.
Yeah, so definitely that won't work without structured data, right? So Google needs that. And I think we also have a think about, I mean, book me a flight is an easy question actually, or easy task for voice search. Maybe more complex questions are definitely more difficult to answer. I'm just thinking about this filter bubble topic actually, because in that moment I don't have temporal links, whatever, and I can decide by my own what I'm actually looking at. I just get an answer, and I have to trust it or not.
That's what I was going to bring up. Yeah, I mean, trust seems to become a much more important factor than anything else, because you're going to actually go straight to the transactional query and say, go book, place me a bet, book me a flight, order me a pizza. Google's going to have to know, in my little Google bubble, little search bubble, what kind of pizza toppings I like, where the best pizza is, and it's going to have to trust every other link that comes in that supports the idea that, my local Franco Manca is the best pizza restaurant. So I think it's a real game changer for us. Any questions regarding the future of search? Anything you're worried about long term? No? Well,
if you're interested, Just Eat actually have an Alexa skill, so you can order a pizza using Alexa via Just Eat right now if you want.
How does it choose which pizza restaurant it uses?
You do that. So it chooses from your favorites. So you have an account, obviously, with Just Eat. So you can ask it to just order what you had last time. You can ask it to go to your local pizza shop, or read out the list. You can interact with it. It's pretty cool.
One thing also to do is to keep an eye on China. There's some interesting developments there that with technology and integration and in everyday's life, where people, use apps to pay at the normal grocery store and stuff like that. It's a much more closed, controlled world where there's a lot of technological advances
that we don't have here because of our regulation and our wishes to keep things separated. They don't have that necessarily. And there's some interesting things happening there that we may see down the line here too. That having said, I don't know about Europe on that one, and that includes also the UK, separate or together. We'll leave that discussion for another thing, another time. But I see that also as a question there, is to what level does our culture here want to embrace 24/7 surveillance inside your home and full access to everything. Like, just think about it. All the apps that you currently have on your mobile phone installed, especially on Android, every app potentially has full access to all your numbers, all your contacts, all your friends, all your daily activities, sensors, data, etc. Are you really realizing how much data are you giving away on a day-to-day basis? And I think that's going to be more problematic in the next few years. I think once Brussels realizes how much that is happening, they may actually stop that or try to. I don't know if they will, that's another story, effectiveness of Brussels. But yeah, I can see a lot of pushback on that coming.
I still have a Nokia 6610. I think I'm going to bring it back out of the closet. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our rock stars. Thank you guys very much. And
Thank
next
you.
up, we're going to have Christoph again, but we'll just take a minute or two to switch over.